This message is from the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs. Did you serve in the military? If so, you can obtain a free lifetime pass to more than 2,000 federal recreation sites. These sites are located across more than 400 million acres of public lands, including national parks, wildlife refuges, and forests. The lands host activities to fit any lifestyle: hiking, biking, fishing, camping, and much more. Gold Star families are also eligible for these free lifetime passes. Plus, they cover entrance fees for a driver and all passengers in a car, or up to 3 additional adults at sites that charge per person. Obtaining one is easy. Just go to the National Park Service website, nps.gov, or the National Park Service app.
In October 2019, Arlington, Texas was chosen to be the home of a new national museum, unlike any other. The National Medal of Honor Museum will be a unique home of military history. The 100,000 square foot museums will house exhibits, archives, and artifacts relating to the 3,500 U.S. troops who have been awarded the medal, the nation's highest honor for valor in combat. The museum will have 31,000 square feet of galleries dedicated to U.S. troops who have received the award. The museum CEO, former Navy SEAL and NASA astronaut Chris Cassidy, said the museum will focus on education as much as preservation. The building will have 5 areas dedicated to Medal of Honor winners from the Army, Marine Corps, Navy, Air Force, and Coast Guard. The main gallery will be located in a central plaza under a 25,000 square foot slab of steel, which will appear to be suspended in midair. It will be supported by 5 pillars. Black Rifle Coffee is a corporate sponsor of the museum, as are the Dallas Cowboys. The museum's board also includes over a dozen major corporations and 6 Medal of Honor recipients, including David Bellavia, Patrick Brady, and Britt Slabinski. Army Staff Sergeant Bellavia was awarded the medal for clearing an entire house by himself on November 10, 2004, as a squad leader in support of Operation Phantom Fury in Fallujah, Iraq. He killed 4 enemy fighters and wounded a 5th in close quarters battle. Army Major General Brady flew and coordinated the evacuation of 51 seriously wounded men during a firefight in Vietnam in January 1968. Slabinski, a Navy SEAL chief and team leader, led a rescue team of SEALs during Operation Anaconda in Afghanistan in March 2002. Slabinski and his team flew to a mountaintop ambush site to rescue Petty Officer First Class Neil Roberts, who had fallen from the back of a helicopter. Slabinski led the team through almost constant combat against an entrenched Taliban force. Along with the board members, former presidents Jimmy Carter, Bill Clinton, George W. Bush, and Barack Obama serve as honorary directors. The museum is expected to open to the public in late 2024.
All right. Welcome back.
Misfit Nation. The Misfit Nation Show.
We are a show founded by a veteran and hosted by 2 veterans and a military spouse. Our mission is to get people to tell their stories to the world. If you're an author, share your tips with the Misfit Nation. If you're a musician or an actor, our audience needs to know how they too can get into the business. Coaches, we love our coaches. Come on and share your tips with the Misfit Nation to help them become better versions of themselves. If you are a corporate leader or an entrepreneur, come on and show how you did it and how hard you have fought for success. If you are a veteran, first responder, or Gold Star family, we would love to have you come on and share your story with the Misfit Nation. We always have time for you. If you're feeling down, alone, or starting to see the darkness, stop. Think about those who are around you. You are not alone. You will be missed. If you feel like your problems will be a burden to those in your inner circle or feel embarrassed, dial 988. If you are a veteran, take option 1. We need you to keep pushing forward. Don't make a permanent solution to a temporary problem. If you are a new listener, welcome to the Misfit Nation Show. Be sure to subscribe to our show on your favorite podcast app. Also on our YouTube channel at @the_Misfit Nation. Subscribe and click the bell to keep you up to date on our latest episodes and all of our news. You can also find us on Heroes Media Group and About Face Radio. Now, let's get to the show!
All right. Welcome back to the Misfit Nation show. It's our Thursday after dinner show, and we got another great one. Those of you who missed the Tuesday show, make sure you get on YouTube and check out the Tuesday crew. A great conversation Tuesday. I think that's one of their best ones yet. Their second official show. You guys need to give them the love that you give me as well. They had Alan Meisner on that night. I think they had a great conversation. They put on a great effort, and look forward to seeing them next Tuesday over the third episode. Tonight, we have a renowned thought leader, best-selling author of The Smartest Person in the Room, a book that explores the limitations of seeking validation through achievement. He's a dynamic entrepreneur and leader, passionate about inspiring others to harness their innate wisdom, overcome perceived barriers, and summon the courage to tread new paths. He believes leadership starts with self-leadership. So without further ado, let's welcome Christian Espinosa to the Misfit Nation. Welcome, Christian.
Hey, thanks for having me on, Rich. I appreciate the intro music. It's very kind of my style of music. I like heavy metal, a little action. It's awesome.
Awesome. So you got your blood pumping a little bit. That's good. I like that.
That's right.
So, Chris, I just basically read the first two sentences of your bio. If you don't mind, take us on a little trip and tell us a little more about Christian. Let the Misfit Nation know more about you, from as far as you want to know to how we got here.
Sure. I grew up in extreme poverty in Arkansas. I moved from California to Arkansas when I was 12. Quite the culture shock, moving from like LA basically to a town of 800 people. And we were very poor, lived in a trailer. My mother was addicted to pain meds and to other substances. So it was very chaotic, lots of police visits, lots of fights, lots of chaos. And I wanted badly to get out of my environment. And since I grew up extremely poor on welfare and WIC and government cheese and all that stuff, I decided to apply myself in high school and apply to all the military installations. So I applied to every military academy there was. I saw the movie Top Gun, became obsessed with, this fighter pilot lifestyle, and chose to go to the Air Force Academy. I know Top Gun is Navy, but I thought, I don't really want to live on an aircraft carrier for 6 months at a time. So I got accepted to the Air Force Academy and decided to go there. And then, unfortunately, a couple years before I graduated, they cut all of the pilot slots. So I did not end up going to pilot training. I ended up going into communications. And that's kind of how I started, my career. My first airplane flight ever was to the Air Force Academy. And that was my escape, as I like to say, from Arkansas in my childhood. And I lasted about 6 years in the military, doing communications and protecting classified environments. And then I started my commercial career.
6 years of Air Force, 4 years in the Academy, and then 6 years. So that's still about 10 years of dedicating your life to something you were passionate about, and hopefully you were going to get to fly. And of course, they pulled it from underneath you. But I think they pointed you in the right direction, because I think you actually found something that you're passionate about in the communications field.
Yeah, I'm definitely passionate about communications. Yeah, it was 10 years total active duty, because the 4 years in college is like, at the Air Force Academy is like 4 years of basic training, basically. So, yeah.
I mean, I guess you went from LA to Arkansas, then back up northwest from Arkansas to Colorado Springs to go to the Academy. A lot prettier in the Colorado Springs than most places I've been to in Arkansas. So that's also good for you as well.
Yeah, it's very beautiful in Colorado. I think there's 54 mountains over 14,000 feet there. So it's beautiful.
Lots of things to do out there as well, especially if you're an outdoors enthusiast. That's a great state to be in. And if you like snow, of course, it's about 6 months of the year. So that helps out too. So you wrote the book, The Smartest Person in the Room, The Root Cause, a New Solution to Cybersecurity. Tell us a little bit about that.
My first business was a cybersecurity business. That's my first business where I had employees. I did freelance work before that. And almost all the problems, like 99% of the problems I had with my company were because my staff lacked emotional intelligence or lacked people skills. They already had like the high IQ, they were highly rationally intelligent. They had the technical skills, just not the people skills. And I realized when I had that problem in my company that I needed to solve it. And I also realized that this is a problem I've witnessed throughout my career in cybersecurity, and it's also a problem in other high tech industries, where and I think everybody wants to be significant. The challenges arises when people their significance stems from them being, quote, smarter than other people. And when your ego is always trying to protect this identity you've made up for yourself by being smarter than other people, it makes it difficult to collaborate and communicate with clients. And this is what I experienced in my company. My staff would talk over a client's head and then tell me that the client was stupid and just didn't understand. And I'm like, this is not the way I want to run a business. The client needs to understand in order to become more secure. And if they don't understand, it's our fault. It's not the client's fault. The client's not in cybersecurity. The client could be a healthcare provider, for instance. So I worked to fix that challenge in my company. And the 7 steps that ultimately worked is what I wrote about in the book. And I did a lot of training in the company, a lot of neuro-linguistic programming training, communications training, how to have crucial conversations, how to better build rapport, how to understand body language for people, and how to do a lot of different things. Basically, like monotasking, and how to ultimately work better as a team, and have more awareness of yourself as well.
Definitely. And I like that you said that the client is the cybersecurity. We are cybersecurity. They have to be worried about their profession, like you said, healthcare or whatever widget they're building at that time. And that's a great way to look at the leadership side of it, to lead your team to do the great things and get the client with the service they deserve.
Yeah, 100%. And I had to let some people go in my organization that didn't want to develop these people skills. And then from then on, when I started hiring people, I hired them only if they met the culture and had the people skills. So I flipped the script. I used to hire people purely based on their technical knowledge and technical certifications. And, to my fault, I largely ignored the fact that they didn't have people skills or they may not fit in the culture. But I flipped that script and only looked at someone's technical skills later if they met the people skills, my core values and culture.
Definitely. That's 100% the best way to I guess to round it out into a better business model. So you have that culture is the business, and a lot of people don't believe that for some reason. That if it doesn't matter what the culture is, business will succeed. That's not true, because people that are not happy in business will leave, and you'll lose that talent that you said you have. Those with the talent to do the job and do the cybersecurity and do the mission that you provide them, that you give them, they have to be passionate to be there and be involved with that culture, and that sells the business to the new recruit to come to your business 100% more than having a good culture.
Right. And as a leader, people look to you to enforce that culture. Culture just doesn't happen. It has to be enforced.
Right.
And that's what I said. Like, some people simply did not want to develop the skills or fit into the culture, and I had to let those people go.
I know that's it wasn't an easy decision for you. I'm sure, easy to see that that's what needed to be done, but you came to that decision and came to that point, that matrix, to make that happen. So that's kudos to you to see that, see the light, and make that curve for your business to make go in the right direction.
Yeah, I think it was necessary for my business to get to the next level to, make these changes. I think in life we have this glass ceiling over our head, and we can't see it because it's called a glass ceiling for a reason. But if we keep doing the same thing, we're always going to wonder why we're not making progress. And I think that's extremely important in business and in life. I think the two are related. So if you reflect and wonder, like, what is it about my situation, or what is it about me, or what is it about my environment that's holding me back, and then make some adjustments, and it'll push the glass ceiling up a little bit higher, but it's still going to be there because you're going to hit it again later on. But the idea is you
Right.
constantly want to keep it moving upwards, so you're moving upwards.
Definitely that, and keeping fresh ideas in there, that helps out as well too. Would you, I guess, describe that as the defining moment in your career, or was there something else that was your defining moment?
I've had many defining moments in my career. That was one of them because I was getting super frustrated with my business and I was blaming my staff and other things versus blaming myself. So that was a defining moment. I think a bigger defining moment for me was when I was working for a commercial company as a vice president. I was making a lot of money. The job wasn't that challenging, and I checked all the boxes of success. Had the house, the car, all that stuff. Yet in that job, I was having this like constant tension with the CEO, and it was causing me a lot of mental anxiety and emotional stress, and to the point where I decided to quit. And I decided to quit without having another job lined up. And given my childhood, I valued safety and stability over everything else pretty much. But at this moment, the stress got so much that I just quit. And I told myself it didn't matter if that company offered me several $1,000,000. I wasn't going to stay in that job. It wasn't worth it. And when I did that, I kind of felt like this relief wash over me and then a little bit of panic because I didn't have another job lined up. But I decided to try a different path, a little bit more risky path than I'd done before, which was to set out on my own and do freelance work. So that tension with the CEO and me quitting without having something lined up put me into a position to do freelance work, which then ultimately led to me developing the courage to start my first cybersecurity business and sell that one. And then now I'm on my second cybersecurity business.
Huh. And sometimes jumping into the unknown is the hardest thing. And you did not just that, you did it when you went to the Air Force Academy thinking you were going to be up there flying F-16s or whatever, and then you had to jump into the unknown in communications as well. And then in this case, going from that secure uh, textbook job, basically the corporate job where you go there 9 to 5, 8 to 4, whatever, and you have that job lined up and get the benefits and saying, "No, my mental stability and is killing my physical well-being as well, going to this job every day. I need something different." And that's a jump a lot of people are very afraid to do, and you did it and were successful. So that's another tip of the hat to you.
Well, thank you. It wasn't easy, by no
Yeah.
means. And we're always scared of what's behind that other door that we don't want to open up. But often behind that door is the thing we're seeking, or the thing that will let us know like maybe this is not the right path. But that's okay. But we don't know. It's better to like take the step and not wonder about it. I do it earlier because the thing I often think about is I knew innately when I tuned into myself that I wanted to have my own business. I didn't like working for other people, but I waited way too long. And if I didn't have that run in with the CEO, I might still be in a 9 to 5 job and be miserable because I remember a couple days like driving to work and there was the exit off the highway. And I literally thought, I just want to keep driving and I want to start my life over. I don't want to get off on this exit and go to this building and work with these people and do this stuff. I just want to start over, whereas nobody knows who I am. That's kind of like where it got for me. But now I have my own business and I traded a 9 to 5 for like a 5 to 9, as they say. It's a lot more work, but it's also a lot more rewarding.
And you definitely have more passionate when it's your job, when your business. You have a lot more passion for it, and you have a lot more passion for those who are around you. So I think you learned some valuable lessons there. And speaking of learning lessons, what was one of the biggest lessons you learned from not only starting a business but also selling one?
The biggest lesson I learned from starting a business, I made a lot of mistakes. There's a lot of lessons. I paid a lot of the dumb tax, as they say. I think the biggest message is to understand your target market and how you're going to solve their problem and be able to communicate it in a way that resonates with them. When I first started my first cybersecurity business, I kind of had the mindset like if I build it, they will come, kind of like the field of dreams. That did not happen. Nobody showed up. So I had to really dial it in like who is my exact client and what can I offer them that my competitors are not offering them? And I ended up shifting to what we call a blue ocean strategy, which is going after a niche where I didn't have a lot of competitors in that niche. And that's what I'm doing today with Blue Goat Cyber is medical device cybersecurity. There's not a lot of people that can do that. So I can become better positioned in that market. And once I understand that market, I can offer services at a higher value because there's not every other person, down the street offering the same thing, and it's not a race to the bottom from a commodity perspective. So I think, that's one of the biggest lessons starting a business is go out, understand your market, your how to speak to your market, and make sure there's not a lot of competitors. That it's a blue ocean strategy. As far as selling my business, one of the biggest mistakes I made is I think I sold a little bit out of a state of fear. It was during COVID, and I lost like 40% of my revenue because we did training, and that, in-person training was basically shut down. So I had been approached by lots of different organizations to buy my business. And when I sold, I think part of it was a little bit of relief, like, okay, I don't have to worry about this anymore. And I think I didn't do enough due diligence because I sold for stock primarily. And that sounds great because the company that bought mine is now a publicly traded company. I was at the cusp of them going public. So I thought, okay, I can sell for stock, get a lot of stock, position the company in a good way where the stock goes up and then have an exit. The challenge was when I was an employee of the parent company, I could never sell the stock because there's all these blackout periods. And then when I finally left the company, I was able to sell the stock, but the stock went from like $5 very relatively quickly down to like 10 cents. So all this money I thought I had, I was able to, I was selling it on the way down, but I could only sell so much a day. So it's like watching literally my money kind of evaporate in the air and thinking, man, next time I sell a company is not going to be for stock, or that'll be a smaller portion of of my sell.
Definitely. Yeah, that's a harsh lesson learned right there, but lesson indeed.
Yeah.
So, cybersecurity, that's a hot topic for a lot of things now. What do you think is the biggest challenge that is facing cybersecurity today?
I think the biggest challenge is physical devices that have technology enabled in them with an AI component. Like we do a lot of medical device cybersecurity, and there's surgical robots that somebody can perform surgery on your spine remotely. A doctor can do that. So, imagine if that robot is hacked in some capacity. There's also this drive to autonomous robots. So a robot can perform surgery autonomously on you with no human oversight. So again, the AI in there, if that is compromised or the bot is compromised, you can now kill somebody or severely maim somebody, which is very different than stealing a credit card or stealing your health information or something like that. And then where I live now, I live in Phoenix. We have autonomous driving cars here. They're in 3 cities: Phoenix, San Francisco, and Austin. The Waymo is the brand. And I take those cars all the time. I think they're safer than Ubers. But I often wonder, what if somebody hacks in this car, speeds up to 150 miles an hour, and runs me off of a bridge or something? There's a new element where it's the consequences and the impact is much greater because we're evolving to where it can affect, a person's life versus just stealing some kind of data or doing ransomware.
Right. I was taking a course through my job right now on the Internet of Things, and it kept coming back to kind of what you said: physical products that have interconnectivity with other physical products with the Internet of Things. Is that security even harder with, like, you have your watches, your headphones, your house security and stuff like that? Is that basically the same thing?
It is. All these interconnected devices make it much harder to secure anything because one of these devices, like in my cousin, for instance, in his house, he has like 46 devices connected to his home network. He has a light bulb connected, the Google, like you say, hey, Google, do this, the TV, the stereo, the thermostat. And the thing is, like, all of these things are an entry point into your environment. So there's a vulnerability with a single one of those things. Somebody can compromise it, and then from there establish a beachhead and attack everything else. So it seems great to have all this stuff connected, or your watch, or your phone, or your TV, or your thermostat, or your doorbell, or whatever. But all these things are more things you have to constantly update and make sure they're configured securely. I mean, even people's home security systems, oftentimes people will leave the default password on like their camera, for instance, outside their front door. So a hacker can simply connect to it and disable it and do whatever they want. So these things are becoming more and more problematic because there's more and more things to consider from a cybersecurity perspective.
Definitely. Yeah. I think that the one thing you touched there, a lot of them never update their systems, or even their personal computers. They don't update. Never mind all the peripherals that are attached to their network. So it's going to be a lot of pain and suffering for people to understand what just happened to them.
Yeah, and hopefully people are a little more proactive. I do a lot of meetings where people share their screen, and I'm constantly surprised by how many people are sharing like their Chrome browser, and it says, click here to launch the update. And then another month I'll talk to the same person. It's the same thing. I wonder how long that non-updated browser has existed for them. They just keep putting it off and off
Right.
and off. And then they visit a website. The next thing they know, they're compromised.
And you, as a cybersecurity professional, look at that and you probably get a little twitch. Oh man! Oh no! Now you're having his screen and your screen. No, please don't contaminate me.
Exactly.
What is you have a secure methodology? What is your 7-step secure methodology?
So step one is awareness. I think we all need some awareness. And I talk about the steps in my book from a neuro-linguistic programming perspective because my audience is technical minded people. As humans, we like to think we're super unpredictable, but the reality is we're very predictable. And we have these programs that run in our brain, and given a trigger, the trigger could be somebody ask you a question in a certain way, and your default program is to get defensive. You automatically execute the program. So what I'm suggesting from an awareness perspective is we understand our behavior, and then if that behavior is not serving us, then we run a different program. We want to stop the main program, which is our strongest neural pathway, run the new one. The more we run the new one, the stronger it will become, just like exercising. And that's an extremely important thing to do, because if we find ourselves in the same situation over and over and over and over, we're not running a program that's helping us, unless that situation we're finding ourselves in is an awesome situation, but it's rarely the case. So that's step one, awareness. Step two is mindset. I'm a big proponent of having a growth mindset, which means we don't believe our brains are hardwired. We believe we can learn new things, that we can install new neural pathways into our brains. Our brains have neuroplasticity. People with a fixed mindset just believe they're just the way they are. They can't change. And that is a recipe for not having a very fulfilling life. So that's step two. Step three is acknowledgement. I believe as a leader, it's important to acknowledge the behavior you want more of, rather than acknowledge when people do something wrong. Because typically whatever you focus on is what you get more of. And for me, that was a very hard step to figure out. I am somebody that doesn't really acknowledge myself at all. I'm much better now, but I was more of the person that would beat themselves up for not doing more, doing better, or going to the next thing. I remember standing under the finish line at Ironman Kona in Hawaii in 2005. It was the first time I went to Hawaii to watch the race. I didn't race the race. I watched it. The very first time I watched the race, I stood at the finish line. I had someone take a picture of me to the finish line. I told myself I would do that race one day. And then literally 10 years later in 2015, I did the race. I qualified. I finished the race. I crossed the finish line. And I was automatically thinking about the next big goal to accomplish. I never took a second to say, man, this is like a 10-year journey. It's kind of cool. I finished this thing, or pat myself on the back or anything, not even like a millisecond. And later on, it occurred to me, like, if I can't acknowledge myself for something that took me 10 years to do, I'm probably doing a crappy job acknowledging my staff or my girlfriend or my family or anybody around me. And that was true. So it took some reflection to change that. Step 4 is communication. I'm a proponent that the meaning of communication is the response you get, which we often forget. So if we're not getting the response we desire, the ownership shifts back to us to alter how we communicate. We tend to blame the other person, like they just don't understand, they don't get it, and we wonder, like, as in cybersecurity, this happens a lot, like why people don't get the budget that they want. It's typically because they're not communicating in terms of business and risk to the people making the decision. And this affects all of our life. And then step 5 is monotasking. This is doing one thing with concentrated effort. It's the antithesis of multitasking. We've been brainwashed to think multitasking is the way to go, but multitasking just makes you very busy and not very productive. It also makes you a very annoying person to spend time with, because if I'm having a conversation with you and you're constantly picking up your phone, looking at text messages, I'm not going to feel seen or heard or appreciated, and I'm going to check out of the conversation. And today, this is a big problem. I feel like I'd rather be the star of my own movie than supporting actor in everybody else's movie that's constantly texting me and asking me for my time. So that's a big one, and like I said, it helps with presence as well. And then step 6 is empathy. Today, there's a lot of focus on division. There's the pro-vaxxers, the anti-vaxxers, the Democrats, Republicans. We always have these like camps of them versus us. And as a human, if you see other humans as separate from you, like part of a different group, it's super hard to be empathetic. For me, an example that comes up with this is a couple years ago, I somehow developed 6 blood clots in my left leg. And, I found out the hospital at the emergency room, and I was there by myself. I didn't have anybody nearby. And the doctor came up and delivered the news. And I'm like, okay, I don't know anything about blood clots. I thought things like this didn't happen to people like me. I was healthy. And I said, what does this mean? He said, well, it means you could die or you could have a stroke at any moment. And I'm sitting there thinking, man, this is not good news. And I'm there by myself. Like my whole life is kind of flashing through my head, like where I got things right, where I got them wrong. What did I live a good life? Because it might be over any second. And I started crying and kind of shaking a little bit. And then what he said is, he's like kind of in a dismissive way. He's like, don't worry, I see this all the time. And I got kind of upset about it. I said, well, you know what? I don't see this all the time. This is a first for me. And I think in that scenario, the doctor was attempting to be empathetic. But again, he saw me as the patient, him as the doctor. And when you see yourself as separate, it's hard to be empathetic. Rather than look at the situation through my lens and approach it a different way, he approached it from his lens, which I think is part of the challenge with empathy. And then the final step is Kaizen. Kaizen is a Japanese word that means constant and never-ending improvement. I think with any of these steps or anything in life, we have to realize it's going to be a journey. We're not going to master something overnight. So if we adopt that philosophy of Kaizen, it gives us the courage to start, because we realize as long as I'm making incremental progress, that's all that matters. I'm not going to become an expert guitar player tomorrow if I just start today. But if I keep at it, I will probably become pretty freaking good in a year, and really, really good in 3 years. We tend to overestimate what we can do in 1 year and underestimate what we can do in 3 or 5. So that's the 7 steps in a nutshell. You can read about them obviously in much detail in my book.
That's thanks for sharing. That's what I was gonna tell you. You can stop at any time so people buy the book as well. But thanks for sharing all 7 of them. And the empathy thing, I had to take another course for my job a couple days ago, and there was 10 questions on being an empathetic leader, and I got 7 of them wrong, but still passed the test somehow. And so now I was actually thinking about it. And I said, I'm probably not as empathetic as I could be towards people. So that's something on my goal board to work towards understanding and doing that a lot better and being more, I guess, present in their reality than just, I don't know, what you were saying earlier. So understand that not everyone's going through the same stuff, and kind of understand that and move forward and stay with that, like you said, growth mindset, and stay positive and move forward and keep them on an upbeat level as well.
Yeah.
And you also mentioned there's just in passing, I went to Kona and I ran the Ironman. But that's again, that's not you. You're not patting yourself in the back, and you didn't even let yourself enjoy it. You're thinking about this thing. You've done 24 Ironmen. Not a lot of people can say they've done 24 Ironman triathlons and are able to live to talk about it or able to walk away from it. A lot of people get hurt doing them. You got the blood clots, even though you're healthy. And I know if I have a friend, she had a lot of problems as well with circulation after doing a lot of triathlon stuff as well. I don't know if it correlates, but it could be just genetic or something in there as well. But you've overcome a lot to stay where you are now, and that's just some of the things you've done. You've also peaked. You did two to seven summits you've done. A lot of people can't say that either. So there's a lot of hats on your back from the Misfit Nation here, from afar, from Tennessee to Arizona, from New Jersey to Arizona, and Kentucky to Arizona. So congratulations
Well,
on all that stuff.
well, thank you.
And do you think you do extreme sports, or some people think they're very extreme, and some people say that's pretty cool that he does that? Do you think you do it because you like the rush or the goal of it, or just it's just something awesome to do?
I think I have a compilation towards risky activities. If there's like a waiver involved that says, I have to sign that I might lose my arm or die, for some reason, I'm like, I'm all in. I want to do that thing. Um, but to me, it's about risk. Ultimately, like people always ask, like skydiving is so dangerous. Sure, it is dangerous, but there's a lot of things you can do to reduce the risk. You can be trained, you can jump the right people, you can jump the right drop zone, you can have two parachutes, you can have an automatic activation device, which deploys if you're knocked unconscious, you wear a helmet. You can have two altimeters. So there's things you can do to reduce the risk with any of the activities I do. It's just some people automatically think this activity is so dangerous. And I'm attracted to them because I think it forces me outside my comfort zone, which is why I try to do something different a lot. Because I think in life, it's very easy to get complacent and get into a comfort zone. Even like with doing Ironmans, I've done 24. So doing a 25th Ironman, absolutely, it's not going to be easy, but it's still kind of a comfort zone for me because I've already done 24. So I think like, what is the next thing? And that's why I did mountaineering. I thought, well, mountaineering is something I haven't done, and it's like way harder than a triathlon. There's no aid stations. You're in the mountains where there's no oxygen, and it's freezing freaking cold. And you got all these tools, this heavy pack, these crampons, this ice axe, all this stuff you got to do. This rope, these knots on a rope you have to tie with your gloves on. So that was again something I did that was pushing me outside my comfort zone. It's the same thing with like my business now. There for a while, I thought, well, I'm just gonna like relax. So I did relax for like a couple months, but then I realized, you know what? I'm not a person that can just relax. I can't sit on the beach in Hawaii, drink Mai Tais for a year. I could do it for a week, but then I started getting antsy and I want to do something. I want to take some risks. So I thought, okay, I'll start a new cybersecurity business and try to capitalize on the things I learned from the first one. But again, it's a somewhat risky activity, not the same as, possibly having my arm cut off or falling down a mountain or something, but it's still financially a lot of risk and emotionally and stressful, a lot of risk with that as well.
Definitely. Thanks for that answer. We do have a question in the audience here. See if it pop up for us. There it is. Oh, here it is. Is AI ever going to top out and level off, or is it just going to get bigger, keep bigger and scarier?
I think AI is going to keep evolving. It already is evolving. I think AI is largely right now in its current state. Its utility is based on whoever is programming the AI, but I think it's going to get much smarter. I think we're going to have a world. I'm not saying it's going to be like Skynet and the Terminator or the Matrix, but we're kind of headed that direction, especially with these things I've been talking about, like the autonomous driving cars, which are here where I live. It's a reality. The autonomous surgical robots, that's a reality. There's a lot of things that are becoming automated that have an AI component. So yeah, I think it's going to get bigger and potentially scarier. And we're probably going to have to do a reset and say, you know what, we got to put some rules and some restrictions on AI. I think people are already looking at that.
Definitely are. I think I've seen a couple articles on looking for legislation towards, I guess, regulating it a lot more than it is right now. And one listener texted me and said, "You're listing everything that he has on his net in his house." We're talking so you got one person thinking about it pretty quickly. So that's awesome. Reach one, teach one is what we like to say here, and you reached him today. So that's awesome.
Yeah, those
Christian,
things are scary.
before we, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna say those things are scary. We often don't think about it, but if a lot of TVs we have a camera in it, and if somebody and there's been many documented cases, someone has hacked in your TV and turned the camera on and watched you in your living room. You know, we don't think about these things from that perspective, but the cyber criminals do. You know, they can also turn on your some device and record you in your house as well. So, I mean, there's a lot of things we have to consider.
Definitely too. Well, whoever hacks into my TV and watches me in the living room, God bless them. It's gonna be a day. But Christian, before we start to wrap up here, I'd like you to give 3 things that you think a budding entrepreneur needs to do to be successful as they build their business, no matter what field it's in.
Number one, I would suggest, I'm being super tactful here, is to do what I would say the brand. It's called the brand script. Donald Miller wrote a book called Story Brand, and there's a Story Brand framework. I would walk through that so you are crystal clear on your customer, your offering, and how it solves their point, and you're also positioned as a guide in the customer's journey rather than a hero. A lot of us try to position ourselves as a hero and put the customer in some other level, and that just doesn't work from my experience. So I would say that's number one. Number two, when you're building a team, be super careful about who you allow on your team, because one bad apple or one toxic person can really suck a lot of your energy out of you. The third thing for an entrepreneur is be prepared for it to be difficult. There's going to be a lot of ups and downs. It's not going to be like you see on some of these YouTube videos where, you know, a guy starts a business. Next thing you know, he's making $100,000 a month. Next thing you know, he's driving a Ferrari and he's on a yacht, all within 8 months. I think that rarely ever happens from my experience. Sure, it does happen on a small scale, but most of us have had to be very persistent, and a lot of it is how long can you stay in the game and how persistent can you be? Because with entrepreneurship, sometimes success is like the next phone call away. But if you're already exhausted after 100, you got to make the 101. So it's a persistence game as well.
Outstanding. That's great advice. Hopefully the audience wrote some of that down. If not, they can check this out on our YouTube channel or when it gets released on all the audio podcast apps, probably in mid to late June. Christian, what's the best way for someone in the audience to either, A, take your secure methodology course, or B, learn more about you or get in touch with you?
Yeah, they can go to my website, christianespinosa.com. My course is available through there. My books are available on Amazon or Audible. I have both of them on Audible. And then if someone needs cybersecurity help, they can go to bluegoatcyber.com, and that's my cybersecurity organization.
Awesome. Christian, again, thank you for taking some of your time tonight to hang out with us here on the Misfit Nation show. And I learned more. I didn't realize we had autonomous cars already working here, so I learned that tonight. And I'm sure they drive better than half the drivers that are here in Tennessee. So I can't wait till they get here and maybe safeten up the road a little bit. But thank you again for taking some of your time tonight to hang out with us.
Yeah, no problem. I appreciate you having me on, Rich.
All right, you have a good night.
You too. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
This is a message from the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs. Got a question about your VA benefits, healthcare, or eligibility? Go to va.gov, where you can access a new interactive chatbot to ask questions 24/7. One can still browse va.gov for information, but you can now ask specific questions to the chatbot, like what's the PACT Act? How do I apply for disability benefits? What's my claim status? You can access the new feature through va.gov's Contact Us page. Then click on the Start Chat button. The chatbot will continue to improve veterans' access to information about the benefits and services they've earned. This is one way VA is offering seamless and secure access to its online resources.
Thanks for checking us out and being a part of the Misfit Nation show. Don't forget to visit our website at themisfitnation.com. That's themisfitnation.com. Check out all our past episodes and get some of the great Misfit Nation gear for you and your family. As always, be humble, stay hungry, and keep hustling because we are
Misfit Nation. Misfit Nation.